From paying $60 to park in downtown Milwaukee to a possible veto of common sense legislation, I'm Jeff Wagner in for Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Well, good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, March Madness came to downtown Milwaukee. Only 2 teams advanced to the Sweet 16, but fans left millions of dollars behind at area hotels, restaurants, bars, and parking lots. Speaking of parking lots, did you ever think somebody would pay $60 to park in downtown Milwaukee? What do they think this is? Chicago? Milwaukee County Executive Chris Abley vetoed a living wage ordinance that experts say will have a catastrophic impact on the family care program. Undaunted, the county board promptly overrode Abley's veto. Milwaukee County residents will have their chance to veto the county board a week from Tuesday when a referendum question on cutting the pay of supervisors goes before the voters. And finally, the State Assembly completed its work for the year by passing a number of bills, including one that would standardize the hours for early voting throughout the state. Governor Walker, in a possible effort to appease people who can't stand him and will never vote for him, is sending signals he may veto the common sense legislation. Really? But first this morning, the battle over gun rights continues. After more than a decade of legislative battles, Wisconsin finally adopted concealed carry legislation in 2011. Since then, a number of gun rights advocates have been pushing a concept called open carry. This is exactly what it sounds like. People openly carry firearms in public places, often provoking responses. Last weekend, an open carry advocate started walking the mean streets of Germantown with a shotgun slung over his shoulder and a handgun on his hip. Predictably, several residents called police. When authorities arrived, the man initially refused to identify himself and appeared ready to record his contact with the cops. Ultimately, the guy left. No charges were issued. The Germantown police chief subsequently described this behavior as senseless, which in turn generated a huge negative response from open carry advocates. So, is it a good idea for people to walk the streets of our communities openly carrying firearms? And if this continues, might a legislative response be in order? Joining us to discuss the issue this morning are Milwaukee Alderman Bob Donovan, the managing editor of WrightWisconsin.com, Brian Fraley, Susie Falk with the Falk Group, and State Representative Jim Ott. Okay, Bob, let's start with you. Guy starts walking through your district in Milwaukee carrying a shotgun and a couple handguns. Is that a good thing, or should people be calling the cops?
It's a terrible thing, and the people should be calling the cops. Now, I'm not opposed to law-abiding citizens having the right to bear arms, and it's certainly in our Constitution. Yet with that right, Jeff, comes certain responsibilities. And to create this kind of an environment where, you know, let's face it, we live in a society where these nutcases are shooting up schools and movie theaters. Certainly, this creates a terrible situation and creates problems for the police.
Now, these open carry advocates would say they're making things safer because if everybody was walking around armed, well, there'd be less bad guys that would be willing to attack them.
Well, I don't buy it. And, you know, again, I'm not necessarily opposed to concealed carry. However, when they're walking with rifles and semi-automatic weapons out in the community and showing off, that's disorderly conduct as far as I'm concerned.
Now Brian Fraley, I know you were around for years and years on the whole debate about concealed carry. Yes. I think you're an advocate of concealed carry, as I am. This open carry, does this go too far?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm an advocate of open carry too. However, in a reasonable way, if you have a gun holstered, and it's on your side, you have the right to do that. Now, places have the right to ban you, you know, from coming in or whatever. But here's the thing with this: just because you have the right to do something, doesn't mean you should do something. You have the right to water your lawn in the summer in a Speedo and flip-flops. That doesn't mean you should do it.
And my wife would be the first one to mention
Talk
that,
about
yes.
disorderly conduct. But seriously, this clown, and that's what he was, a clown, is just trying to provoke a response. And what he's doing whether he realizes it or not, is he's setting the gun rights movement back, because he's not only going to provoke a response from the anti-gun crowd, but he could provoke a response from legislative members who support gun rights, because if they look at a remedy to try to get over all this stuff, we're going to end up walking backwards and having less rights.
Germont, that's what I wanted to ask. I mean, how do you feel about this? And if this continues with the distractions that it's causing, might there be a legislative remedy that we look at?
Well, there's nothing on the table right now, Jeff, and I'm a strong supporter of Second Amendment rights. I voted for the concealed carry bill in the Assembly and for the Castle Doctrine as well. And we do have a constitutional right to open carry. I mean, that's why you can go hunting and carry a gun around. Unfortunately, when people see someone carrying a gun, a rifle down the street, and it's not hunting season, I mean, it obviously is being done to provoke a response. I think the police response has been very reasonable, and I do believe, I agree with Brian, it's kind of setting the you know, the legal carry backwards, because we want to have people be more comfortable with the idea of law-abiding citizens able to protect themselves. Well, when you have people seeing someone walking down the street carrying a rifle, their kids are playing outside, that does not make them more comfortable.
Well, yeah, so let's talk about the PR aspect of this, because I've always felt that stunts like this, and they are stunts, it's sort of like the people that hang outside the street corners waving the giant posters of the aborted fetuses when people are driving by. There's this tendency, I think, to want to portray people who appreciate gun rights as being gun nuts, and that's not the case. But people see this. Some guy walking around Germantown carrying a gun, they think, okay, this is a nut, and they think everybody who supports gun rights is a nut.
Well, you're right. I mean, this is the best thing for the anti-gun folks. I mean, this guy who's got a long gun slung over his back and a shotgun, he's carrying 2 guns, he's walking down Germantown streets. It's not like he was, you know, hunting for pheasants, you know, on back county roads, and he happened to have his orange on. I mean, obviously he was doing something to make a point. Interestingly enough, this guy in Germantown said that the cop's response, the sheriff's response to him, was very appropriate, and so he's just testing, you know, and the cops are doing the sheriffs are doing the right thing to, you know, pull the guy over and talk to him and say, be on your way, please. I think this is just such a mistake for the gun movement. And I do support concealed carry. This is
enough testing. You know, I mean, it's a stunt. Enough testing. Okay, what has your glass half full and what has your glass half empty? Let's go around the table. Bob Donovan.
Well, Jeff, my glass is half full because the 2014 city budget added 120 more police officers. My glass is half empty because given our current vacancy rate and the increasing retirements, that 120 cops is only a drop in the bucket.
Brian Fraley.
My glass is half full because this is not only a great time for sports fans, it's a great time for Wisconsin political junkies. Session is wrapping up, campaign season is just starting, and we just had a great live insight show this past week. My glass is half empty because I'm running on too little sleep and too much caffeine.
Susie Falk.
My glass is half full because the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics just announced that Wisconsin added 31,000 jobs from September of 2012 to September of 2013, which included a 1.2% increase in private sector hiring. This places Wisconsin in 35th place in the nation, up from 37th last year. My glass is half empty because Wisconsin is ranked 35th in the U.S., still trailing nearly 3/4 of the country.
Jim Ott.
Jeff, my glass is half full because it's finally spring. The snow has melted. It's half empty because now we can see what was under that snow.
And on the same wavelength there, my glass is half full because spring started on Thursday. It's half empty because I'm afraid it's going to snow until June. Up next on Sunday Insight, Mary Burke says if she's elected, she'd eliminate the statewide school voucher program and the private school tax deduction. Good idea, bad idea? We'll be right back. Well, as the race for governor heats up, Democrat challenger Mary Burke is staking claim to certain issues. In general, if Governor Walker is for it, she's against it, and vice versa. Starting this year, parents of children who attend private or parochial schools can qualify for a modest tax break. For example, a typical family will get a $240 tax cut for each kindergarten through 8th grade student and $600 for each high school student. Burke, describing this as an entitlement program, wants to do away with the tax break. She also wants to eliminate the recent statewide expansion of the school voucher program, which allows 500 students from across the state to use taxpayer funding to attend private or religious schools. So, is this an entitlement program that deserves to be cut? Brian Fraley.
Of course not, but this should come as no surprise that Madison School Board member Mary Burke is beholden to the teachers union. And the teachers union wants to put the kibosh on these programs. They want to repeal Act 10. They want to undo all the reforms that Republicans in the legislature have ushered in over the previous years. That will be her agenda. She will do whatever her overlords at the teachers union tell her to do.
Okay, but why isn't it an entitlement program? If I have enough money that I can afford to send my children to private school, why should the taxpayers be giving me a tax break?
The goal of our commitment to the school children in Wisconsin are to make sure that the school children have access to a quality education. What is wrong with empowering parents to determine what they decide is the quality education?
Jim, what was the thinking behind this? I mean, you were one of the people that voted for this program. Right. What's the idea?
Well, I think, first of all, it's good that Mary Burke finally is starting to state some positions, although I totally disagree with the position she's stating. Here's the thing. You know, as a parent, you're paying taxes to support the public schools, and if you send your student to a private school, you should, I think, get some tax consideration because you're paying tax to the public schools. And secondly, you know, as far as the voucher program is concerned, it's been just a great opportunity for parents of poor parents of children to send them to a school that maybe they couldn't otherwise afford, and these choice schools are doing a great job.
Okay, Susie Falk, I don't have children, but I mean, I pay property taxes to support the public schools. Is this really that much different than that?
You know, I think that if you let's look at the university setting for a minute. You have public universities and you have private colleges and universities. And quite frankly, because of the competition, we have people coming in from all over the world to attend schools in our country, right? So through scholarships and federal grants and whatnot, that money is going into private colleges and private universities. And it's because of that competition that we've been able to create such an excellent university level program. I am an advocate of competition when it comes to public versus private schools in the state of Wisconsin, and I do think parents of kids in certain districts should have a choice. In terms of her eliminating the voucher program statewide, you know, unless she's got a better idea, you know, I'd like to hear it. But I think vouchers, especially in poor districts, are extraordinarily important. However, I think report cards have to be in place too, and those schools have got to be accountable.
Bob, what about the politics of this? Is this purely political, or is there some merit to this?
Well, I can't speak for, you know, Burke, but I think it's a mistake on her part. I've always been a supporter of school choice. I think the average citizen will agree with me when I say education is the only ticket out of poverty. And given the challenges MPS is facing, by God, we need to offer a lot of different alternatives.
Right. Well, I got to tell you, I for one am glad that we finally have an entitlement program that Mary Burke is not in favor of. So that's a good thing. Now, you might not want to hear it, but we're going to tell you it anyways. Let's dish out some unsolicited advice. Bob Donovan.
Where are we? Oh, I'm sorry. We'll have to start over again.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, Jeff, this one's easy. My advice goes directly to the mayor. Dump the streetcar.
Brian Fraley.
Hey, to Governor Scott Walker, who this week wouldn't say what he'll do with the bill that would create uniform standards for early in-person voting, sign it.
Susie Falk.
Republicans who stood in the way of oral chemotherapy bills should get out of the way when it comes to legislation that supports advancements in medicine that have a direct impact on the quality of life.
And Jim Ott.
And we did pass the bill, by the way, this week in the Assembly.
There were some hurdles there.
Wisconsin's meteorological climate is cold. This is a good state to come, though, if you're looking for an improving tax climate.
And my unsolicited advice is for 44-year-old Timothy Connolly, who was arrested Wednesday night by Racine authorities for drunk driving. Connolly has 9 prior drunk driving convictions. Mr. Connolly, bring your toothbrush. Hopefully this time you'll be a guest of the state prison system for a long, long time. Coming up next on Sunday Insight, the Brewers and Hank the dog. Can't get enough or way too much. We'll talk about it next. Well, welcome back to Sunday Insight. The Brewers open the season a week from tomorrow, and there are a lot of question marks surrounding the team. Will the pitching hold up? Who's going to play first base? Who's going to play second base? Will Ryan Braun return to his form after his suspension? All valid questions, but none of these are what Brewers fans are talking about. Why? because it's all Hank the dog all the time. Hank is, of course, the stray dog that showed up at the Brewers spring training facility. He's been adopted by the team and the fans. As a matter of fact, hundreds of people showed up at the airport to meet Hank when he arrived in Milwaukee, and even more showed up at Miller Park the following day to see Hank and buy Hank-related merchandise. There's even a rumor that Hank might soon get his own bobblehead doll. Is this a great feel-good story, or have you had enough of Hank? Susie Falk.
Oh, I think, you know what, you can't get too much Hank. He's so cute. I want Hank to come to a fundraiser that we're both going to be at in early May. Rick Schlesinger, please. Hank is a huge PR coup for the Brewers. You know, this little pooch ends up on the field. He finds a home, so Hank wins. The Brewers win because he's been great for selling of promotional stuff and whatnot. I mean, who hasn't heard of Hank yet? There are also other winners in this. Businesses that are going to be giving away stuff when the Brewers score one for Hank. And Ryan Braun, let's not forget Ryan Braun. The media has diverted its attention away from Ryan.
Bob Donovan.
I'd like to know what you have against dogs.
I'm just asking the question
here. I
here.
love Hank, and I agree with Susie. I think it's great PR. My God, this is the best thing that's happened to the Brewers since Robin Yount. So I love it. Now, as long as it doesn't go for the next 6 months, every day.
Okay, Brian Fraley, you're our house curmudgeon. Hank the dog, what do you think? You're over Hank the dog.
Enough. I mean, it was a nice little feature. Let's get on to the season. I'm excited about baseball. Look, the Trenton Thunder used to have a mascot called Chase the Wonder Dog. It was a bat dog. It was really cute. It was nice. The kids loved it. It's fine. But people paid attention to the baseball. Let's get to the game.
That's Brian Fraley at rightwisconsin.com. Jim Ott.
I love the dog.
Spoken like a politician.
I think Milwaukeeans have always had kind of a soft spot in their heart for animal stories like this. There's a statue of a duck downtown. 1947, Gertie the duck built a nest on pilings next to the Wisconsin Avenue Bridge. It became a national story, and we had a statue of the duck. So I think it makes a lot of sense that Hank the dog has been so favorably accepted.
You know, what I think is so amazing, this is the luckiest dog in the world. Can you imagine? I mean, a couple weeks ago, it's a stray in Maryvale, Arizona. All of a sudden, it gets adopted by the Brewers, and now this has gone nationwide. It's gone worldwide. I was a little bit hesitant about Hank, but I'm on the bandwagon. Matter of fact, my opening day radio broadcast, we're going to do an interview with Hank the dog, so that's going to be great radio. Okay, is what they said this week what you heard? Let's go around the table. Bob Donovan.
What members of the Arena and Cultural Entertainment Task Force said recently is that they have a desire to work together. What I heard, however, is a continued divide between the city and suburban members, and that does not bode well for this region's future.
Brian Fraley.
CNN speculated that the Malaysian plane may have been swallowed by a black hole. What I heard was a former reputable news organization willing to do anything to get the people to watch them.
Susie Falk.
After a decade of studying fossil bones of a 500-pound bird-like creature, paleontologists have announced they plan to call the huge bird Chicken from Hell because it has a bony crest on its head, a dinosaur tail, 5-inch claws, and feathers sprouting all over the place. What I heard is, hey, if we name it Chicken from Hell, imagine the media attention we'll get.
Paleontologist. Wow. Jim Ott.
Last week, Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius said that the government can't track how many people have paid their health insurance premiums so far under Obamacare. What I heard was, we really don't want to know.
And for me, well, what the Milwaukee Wave said this week was the team was exploring all options in an effort to keep indoor soccer in Milwaukee. Unfortunately, what I heard was, thanks for the memories, it's been a great ride. Next on Sunday Insight, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. But first, here's your morning news update. Well, it's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Bob Donovan, you're first.
Well, my winners, Jeff, are Hank the dog and the Milwaukee Brewers. Whether planned or not, this was a brilliant PR move that I hope leads to a very successful season. And my losers, quite frankly, are the members of the Milwaukee Common Council because we don't have a mascot like Hank.
You just can't get enough Hank. Brian Fraley.
My winners are the hundreds who attended Insight 2014 in Pewaukee this past week, especially the rightwisconsin.com subscribers there. It's always nice to see the people who read and appreciate your work. Hey, my losers? No, not Hank the dog. It's the mainstream media who obsess about the Koch brothers' political involvement, but are silent about the actions of George Soros and liberal billionaires.
Susie Falk.
Sure. Supporters of a new arena are my winners. This week, the BMO Harris Bradley Center is the epicenter of an enormous amount of economic activity this week, thanks to the NCAA men's basketball tournament bringing several of its games here. So whether or not you're a fan of basketball, you can't help but like that the tournament is helping to generate an estimated $4.6 million in economic impact and $325,000 in local taxes, all thanks to the arena. My losers are the local employers who lost hundreds of thousands of hours of productivity due to the tens of thousands of workers checking their NCAA brackets on their smartphones this week.
Boy, first paleontologist, then epicenter. Look at the big brain on Susie there.
Jim
Ott.
My loser this week, the 40 drunk drivers who were arrested last weekend in Operation Drive Sober by the OWI Task Force. A number of them repeat offenders. Nice work, Sheriff Clark. My winner this week, all of the Milwaukee area hotels, restaurants, and other businesses that had lots of extra customers thanks to the NCAA tournament games at the Bradley Center on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, and my loser this week, well, it's former Common Council President Willie Hines, who abruptly resigned his elected position to take a higher-paying job with the Milwaukee Housing Authority. Unfortunately, without a waiver, he can't legally be hired for a year, and the waiver has not been forthcoming. Oops. My winner is the city of Milwaukee. Again, the NCAA tournament came to town. Fans had a great experience. They left with a lot of great memories and a little less dough. And that's the way it should be. Thanks for joining us, and join Charlie for his radio show Monday morning. It's on News Radio 620 WTMJ from 8:30 until noon. I'm Jeff Wagner. Have a great week, everybody.